What's up, guys? I hope everybody's having a blessed day today. And for today's topic, I really wanted to talk about what you kind of go through after you start kind of surrounding yourself and building a life with God, because I feel like that's when things kind of can get the hardest. One of the most discouraging parts of healing is when you finally feel like you're making progress, but then suddenly you also end up falling back into those old habits, right? Those old mindsets, old temptations, and just old fears. And you start asking yourself, why am I still struggling with this particular problem? I thought I was past this. Why do I keep failing and falling back into this and just falling down? And this is where a lot of people, I feel like, end up quitting because they think progress means perfection, being perfect, but that's not how healing works. We are all imperfect, and so we will always naturally be drawn back to temptation and sin, but we can find ways in our progress to limit how much that affects us and whether we put ourselves in certain places and situations that make it much harder at the end of the day to escape from those habits and those temptations that we're experiencing. Healing can often feel very messy. Growth is always messy, and your walk with God will always have its ups and downs, but it's not like you just snap your fingers and everything is just magically better, right? And I wish someone kind of told me that earlier in my walk with God, because I used to kind of think once I would, surrender everything to God, everything would just kind of just get easier. Everything would just end up just working itself out. And that old temptations would just disappear. The old thought patterns would just vanish, and also that my anxiety would just never come back. And that honestly just wasn't the reality. There were a lot of moments where I felt closer than God than I used to be, but there were also moments where I felt myself slipping back into these old mental patterns, that of fear and lust and overthinking and just seeking validation. And every time that would happen, I would feel just so ashamed at myself. That's how the devil attacks you, right? Making you think, well, if I'm so weak, then I can't ever get over this bad habit, then do I even deserve God's love? Do I even deserve to be saved at the end of the day? And Proverbs 24:16 says, "For though the righteous fall 7 times, they always rise again." The difference isn't falling. The difference is getting back up when you do fall. That is true strength and faith. One of the biggest struggles was seeking validation through relationships for me. After my long-term, relationship ended, I was completely heartbroken inside, and instead of healing properly through God, I tried filling that void too quickly with the wrong things. I entertained new relationships way too soon, and every time one of them would fail, it would make the pain just 10 times worse, and I just wasn't actually healing. I was just basically distracting myself from the actual healing process, because sitting alone with your pain it can feel unbearable, but God had to put me through that pain to show me another person was never supposed to be my healer in the first place. Jeremiah 17:5 indicates this. "Cursed is the one who trusts in man." Not because people are genuinely evil, but because humans were just never meant to carry the same weight that only God can. Most people don't return to old habits because they love sin. They return to those old habits because it just feels familiar to them, and familiar feels just safe to us. And even when it can be destructive, people still end up returning to it, to things like toxic relationships, to porn addiction, to comfort eating, to doom scrolling, to avoidance and isolation, because pain makes comfort look attractive, even if it's false comfort. One of the craziest Bible stories about choosing comfort over temporary pain is Israel after Egypt, right? God literally freed all of them from Egypt. And part of the Red Sea, he even performed all these miracles, and yet they kept just wanting to go back to Egypt. Why? Because at the end of the day, Egypt was familiar to them. Slavery was familiar to them, and freedom just felt so uncertain. In Exodus 16:3, the Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death. They literally said they just wanted Egypt again, even if it was terrible for them. And I think a lot of us do the same thing a lot of the time. We pray for freedom, but then we end up running back to what God delivered us from and what we wanted to be delivered from in the first place, because healing just feels so unfamiliar. This one thing changed everything for me when it came to shame. There's a huge difference between, I feel like, conviction and shame, because conviction says that action was wrong, but shame, on the other hand, says you are wrong. And conviction pushes you toward God, but shame pushes you away from him. And Satan loves when people can confuse those two things. Romans 8:1, there is therefore now no condemnation. I realized I couldn't just pray old habits away. I needed to also make practical changes in my life too, different routines, different boundaries, and also surrounding myself in different environments and different inputs. And if your triggers kind of stay the same, your results will usually stay the same as well. And God can transform your heart, right? But discipline protects your progress and makes sure you don't regress at the end of the day. And that's something that we all need to form first. 1 Corinthians 10:13, no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also always provide a way out so that you can endure it. God provides a way out every time, even if it feels unbearable in that current moment. But sometimes we tend to ignore that exit altogether, and that is the real test from God, right? To see whether we will give into that bad habit again or flee from it. Peter promised Jesus he'd never fail him. Then he ended up denying him 3 times. Imagine that guilt, that shame, that regret that he experienced. And what did Jesus do after the resurrection? He ended up restoring Peter despite all that, not discarding him. And in John 21, Jesus asks, do you love me? And he ends up giving Peter a purpose again. And I think that's one of the best ways we can really see God's forgiveness. And that's when we do fall, your failure isn't final, and God will not cast you to the side because of it. If you keep on falling back, please don't quit, right? Don't let one week, one bad, day just convince you that God isn't done with you, that God is punishing you. Progress isn't perfection, and relapse doesn't erase your growth. The fact that you're fighting means God is still working in you and your life, and just keep getting back up. Keep praying and just keep moving. In this next episode coming up, I want to also talk about loneliness, because I know with healing it can feel very incredibly isolating at times, and a lot of people feel like nobody really understands them during that time and the weight they're carrying, and I really want to just kind of dive into that. But thank you guys for watching. If you made it this far, if you enjoyed the video and you got something from it, please leave a like. It really helps out the channel, and I do appreciate all the support and loving comments I've gotten over the last couple of months. It's amazing that we're almost at 700 subs already, and I just can't thank you guys enough for all the support you've shown me, and I pray that this channel can be used to keep reaching at the people that it needs to reach, and that it ends up at least just helping one person. If it can do that, then it's way worth all the effort and energy I'm putting into it. So once again, I appreciate all of you guys, and also if you think this video can help anybody else, please share it with them too. And I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great night, and God bless.